It's just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing Christian Pusateri. Thank you so much for coming by the house.
Thanks for having me.
And by the way, I never do commercials. No one ever pays me to come on the show. I had him come on the show because he actually works for an idol role model of mine, Stephen Buchanan. We had him on the show. Obviously, one of the greatest endodontists that ever lived. I also think he was like the first endodontist to actually he actually got a CAT scan. I mean, this is way back in the day, probably before you were born. You're 33. I've been a dentist. Oh, that's sad. I was actually a dentist when you were 3. And when I graduated from college, you were just a dream for your parents. You weren't even reality. But man, he was taking CAT scans of molars and blowing my little walnut mind 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
Because before Steve... You call him Steve or Steven? Or what do you call him?
Call him Steve.
Yeah.
Dr. B.
Dr. B? Is that what he goes by? Okay. Well, Dr. B, really before I met that guy, you thought a molar was 3 little straw tubes.
Right.
And then he started injecting them with dye and taking CAT scans. You're just like, holy shit. And he was the one that really burned into my mind that when you mechanically debride a root canal, he's like, Howard, you're maybe taking out 40, 50, if you're lucky, 60%. All those little weaves, and hey, you got 40% more bacteria, fungi, viruses, microorganisms, and irrigants is everything. And you were telling me he's really big into ultrasonics, and that was with Acteon?
Acteon, yep.
And what was he using so much from Acteon?
Well, he's using that to do canal axes, apical surgeries, so you can do a number of endodontic procedures with the Acteon.
So it was more apicoectomy, more surgeries. It wasn't cleaning and shaping. I mean, it wasn't ultrasonic cleaning.
Yeah, you absolutely can as well.
Yeah,
those procedures.
And then, I mean, after seeing Steve one time, went to his hands-on course.
Yeah.
Which actually turned out at the end to be absolutely frightening because a classmate of mine was there named Chip Castine, and he said after the class, I was going to fly out the next day, and Dr. Chip Castine, Richard Castine of Bakersfield, California, said, well, hey, let's go to Bakersfield tonight. And I said, nah, it's too far to drive. He goes, no, I fly my own plane. So I said, cool. So we went to Santa Maria, California?
Well, that would be up by San Luis Obispo, Santa Maria.
No, well, what's the closest airport by?
Santa Monica.
Santa Monica.
Oh, well, Santa Maria is by Dr. B. You're right. That's Santa Maria.
So it's Santa Maria Airport. And this is my classmate that I went to dental school with for 4 years. And we're getting his plane and we're flying back and everything. And then all of a sudden, he takes his hands off the wheel and he's sitting like this. Yeah. And the plane's starting to wobble and he's like, hey, Howard, you better grab that wheel or we're all going to die. And I'm like, what? And he forced me. And, oh, my God, because there's that big mountain range over there.
Right, yeah. And
he said, Howard, I keep saying pull back as far as it goes. At this point, you're going to crash into the side of that mountain, And I'm pulling back, and it was so funny.
That's great.
Yeah, so great times out there. Big shout out to Dr. B, whose real name is Stephen Buchanan. So tell me, you've been working for him. So Stephen's got a new company, Dental Engineering Lab. Yep. And now you're working there. So tell us what you do.
Well,
how are you helping dentists?
I got really excited because I was in implantology basically for almost a decade. We were doing courses for various companies, teaching doctors how to place implants. Usually GPs, but also doing more advanced things like ridge splits, in sinus lifts, and lateral windows. And Dr. B bought, just like he was the first one to get in the cone beam train, he was one of the first doctors I met nationwide to get his own Stratasys 500 3D printer, like the big one, the one that can print your head if you want.
And it's called what? A Stratasys?
It's a Stratasys 500.
Stratasys 500. Okay.
And so it takes 7 different cartridges of polymers. So you can have 7 different colors and types of polymers that it can inject all at the same time. And he started fidgeting with it, figuring out how to make it what he wanted to make. And we were working together. He was a customer at the time. And I was blown away by what was going on. And even though he does a fair amount of implants, especially a lot for endodontists.
Steve's placing them.
Steve's been placing them for a while. Yeah. He really needed someone to come on who's been just in that world and immersed in it. So enter me.
Because you have a long history in implants. You've worked
somewhat
with Hyacin out of Korea, Implants Direct, was started by Jerry Nisnik, which
Worked
has
with Jerry
been on the
Nisnik.
show, and now
Yep.
that's owned by Kerr.
Danaher.
Danaher. Kerr,
which is owned by Danaher.
which is owned by Danaher. So it's Implants Directors Division of Kerr, which is division Danaher.
Correct.
And then you're with Camlog.
Yep.
That went Stan Bergman, who we've had on the show, swallowed up with Henry Schein. So Steve wanted someone with a big implant depth and breadth, and that's you.
Yeah, he brought me in, and we actually took this model in the software and rendered it.
So that's 3D printed out of his Stratasys.
This is from
500?
a cone beam. It's from a cone beam file that we then rendered and sent to the printer. So this is a real patient.
So that's a real human.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So this is a real human. So you got a 3D, the whole main advantage of a CBCT or cone beam is just that, when you're on a 2D pantograph, you have all these overlapping images.
Right.
So the bottom line of 3D is you just don't have overlapping images.
Exactly.
That's just it in a nutshell.
Right.
So you sit there and so you took a cone beam of a human.
Right.
And then you printed out and you got this.
Yes.
And
more or less.
So does
this is a mandible with a base plate on it.
So do you know who it is?
I do know who this is. Well, it was actually an employee of Stephen's, and we
missing all these teeth.
We take those teeth out. He had all of his teeth, thankfully.
Oh,
so we can render that file.
Is Steve hiring a bunch of hillbillies from Kansas?
It was a really good
This reminds me back home in Kansas. So then you remove some teeth on the deal.
Yeah, just to make it good for drilling implants.
Yeah, and this person, is it a boy or girl?
That was a male.
So this isn't.
Well, this one is to scale. The sinus is to scale.
This is to scale.
So this one we actually scaled up.
Okay.
We can make it about 30%
so same
bigger,
human,
depending on
same patient,
same.
But you
human,
scaled this one up.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now it needs orthodontic surgery.
Exactly. We got to bring it back down again.
Expansion.
Palatal. Yeah.
So you're printing these out on
Correct.
your Stratasys 500.
Yes.
And why is Steve interested in this? Why are you printing out models?
So historically, if you want to learn some sort of oral procedure, you're going to go to a course that either has injection mold models, or you're going to go to a course a little more extreme. You're going to use pig jaw, goat head, or human cadaver. So the problem with goat head and pig jaw is that it's great tissue, but it's not human tissue. And if you're doing any soft tissue management, it's not going to be the real thing at all. Injection mold models they're models. They're like the real thing, but they're not the real thing. So this is actually, we call these replicas technically to differentiate from a model, because this is actually the the patient's anatomy. So the way the soft tissue lies, how the crown is in the trabecular bone, the PDL, like this is all, it's a real replica. So the idea is that we're trying to control the anatomy so that we can really hone in on courses where doctors can go, they'll know what to expect, and they can practice one procedure over and over and over again. So if you're going to do a ridge expansion or a sinus lift, you can get the same model and do the same sinus lift 10, 20 times, and then you iterate. Then you move on to the next procedure. Instead of cadaver courses today, when you reflect the soft tissue and you go in there, you don't know what you're going to get, if it's a cadaver or a pig jaw. So you've got 20 people in class, and they're all having different experiences because they all have different cadavers, they have different specimens. So even if you go to a class that's made for implants, you're getting some wonky cases. One doctor's dealing with a nice wide ridge. Another doctor's dealing with a really thin ridge. Those are two totally different cases. And if those were patients coming into your practice, you would not be dealing them the same. You might be saying yes to do this implant and no to that one. So we're trying to allow doctors to really control the anatomy and practice one procedure at a time before they move on.
I got my fellowship in the Mission Institute with implants, and then I got my diplomat in the International Congress for Implantology, and this is in the 90s. And my God, you'd have a 2D companion, and you think, oh, this is the easiest case. He has an inch of mandible.
Right.
Then you get in there and you reflect it back, and it'd be some paper-thin knife edge, and by the time you reduce that little knife edge so you could have something 5-6 millimeters wide, you lost half the damn height. It was just crazy.
Exactly.
So these could also. So these are you. And by the way, and this is what if I was Steve, I would start talking to those boards, because there's really going to be a lot of lawsuits against those state boards for that very reason.
Right.
They say, okay, we got to do a filling, and your patient doesn't show up. Mine shows up 30 minutes late, drunk and high.
Right.
And then this over here has perfect grandma who just sat still the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's a standardized test. I mean, the didactic standardized, but the live patient is just
not at all
bullshit. And
Exactly.
and you take these dental students that have been paying $70,000 to $100,000 a year for dental school. So some of these kids are $400,000 debt, plus they're undergraduate.
Right.
And then they fly all the way to this dental school. Like I was in Kansas City. So to practice in Arizona, the only board at that time, Arizona didn't have dental schools 30 years ago, so I had to go to Redland, California.
Yeah,
Loma
Redlands.
Linda.
Yep,
Loma
Linda.
Linda. So I had to fly a patient and an assistant out from Kansas. I had no money. I mean, back then, I think my job, I was making $3.25 an hour, and I got to fly 3 people out there, and I passed, and my buddy that I went with didn't pass for totally unfair reasons, you know, because it wasn't standardized.
Right.
So if I was Steve, I'd start working with all those state boards and just start saying, dude, you got to make this a standardized test.
Well, that's the idea.
Yeah, because it's just not fair to these kids. $400,000 in debt.
Right.
To have a life
And
patient
they're
variable.
essentially not taking the same test.
And then Loma Linda was kind of a mafiosa deal because when I got there, the upper grads told me that if you hired one of their dental assistants, you'll pass. You know, you have an infinitely higher chance of passing than bringing your own. So I flew a damn assistant all the way out there, and then on the day it was a 2-day board exam, and then basically just said, "Well, I hired one there," and so I told her, you know, back to the hotel, hang out, do whatever. And sure enough, man, from just the sample I saw back in '87, the people who used the dental assistants who worked for the school, they had a really high pass rate, and the ones who didn't hire them had a really low pass rate. So it needs to be standardized.
So this could be a solution.
Yeah,
that's what we're hoping, I think.
Well, you should start contacting those boards. You know where all the boards are.
Well, Howard, you're friendly with them, so maybe you can put us in touch.
Yeah. Well, the best way to get in touch with them would be a lawyer. Because it's a predatory practice.
Yeah.
To prey on poor dental students and
Yeah.
make them do that. So these could they also be training model or what do you call it when you're presenting to a patient? You know, when
Absolutely.
you're using these
So
for the
we
surgeries.
think what we're guessing, and that's kind of what the bet that we're taking, is that the way that the market is going is patient-specific modeling. So as more GPs begin doing cases and as more advanced cases become available to the average private practice dentist, they will want to print out an exact scan of the patient first and practice the surgery on this first, then do the live.
So right now, do you have dentists that are taking a cone beam and then sending you the file, and then you're printing out a custom of their patient?
We're just getting into that. It's still we're on the border of it being cost prohibitive, but we're passing that border. The costs are coming down, and I think that's what we're going to be getting into in the next 18 months.
By the way, Steve Buchanan was podcast number 446. You just got to watch that show. So the cost is coming. Where's the cost at now? If someone was gonna
right now, these models go for about $225 retail, and we're getting better. We're learning, we're learning basically how to minimize costs. So and still get a good product. So it's like any new technology. When the iPhone first comes out, it's $1,000, and then a year later, it's $500. So
yeah, my first DVD was $800, and it was horrible.
Yep.
And within 8 years, they were $35 and perfect.
Exactly.
So your website is dentalengineeringlab.com.
That's it.
So what are my homies going to find if they go to dentalengineeringlab.com?
Well, your homies are going to find not only our 3D printed jaws, mandibles, and maxillas for surgeon endo, they'll also find 3D printed teeth, which we have in universities around the world. They'll find we're the exclusive distributor of the TrueVision 3D camera system for microsurgery, and they'll also find the Teriuchi file retrieval kit, which Steve doesn't manufacture but assembles his own way, and we also are the exclusive distributors of that.
And so it's going to be an open source system. So if someone takes a CBCT, they're going to email you the
and then we import into our software and we render.
Okay, so first of all, we always hear that some systems are more closed. Like Dentsply, Sirona, Galileo, some are more open.
Yeah, they're closed.
So, can your Dentsply, Sirona, Galileos export that file to you guys?
As long as we get it in DICOM or STL file format, it's fine.
But I mean, can they do that?
Yeah, if they can. Yeah, they can export. I'm pretty sure Cerex Corona can just export to a regular 3D image file, which is an STL. So as long as we get it in that form, then we can.
And what's
render
STL
it
stand for?
I'm
only familiar with STDs.
I think it's just as STDs only. I think STL is stereolithography. I think, but it's just basically it's the acronym for a 3D JPEG.
Oh, 3D JPEG.
It might stand for stereolithography, I think, but
okay. So, but for the Cerex Corona used right now, you're pretty sure that this will work.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so all 3D printers, cone beams will work.
Well, the cone beam is a 3D imaging.
But
so
they can export it. I think they all export DICOM, don't they?
Yeah, they all do. So as long as we just receive the DICOM and then we render it in our own software. So it has to basically be rendered in a software before it's sent to the printer. So that's where a lot of the legwork goes in knowing what to do, because when we get the 3D image, it's a 3D image the same way you see the 3D image on your screen. Yeah. We have to turn that into this in the software before it goes to the printer.
So Steve's an intense dude. I mean, he doesn't do anything.
Nothing halfway.
If that kid got an A-, he'd be livid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what?
Good thing he never did.
You're saying he's placing implants. What implant system is he using? One?
He can place pretty much anything, but I think his favorite so far is the Nobel series, the Active.
Nobel Active.
Yeah, that's a great implant.
And why do you think he likes that one the most?
You'd have to ask him. I know it's a top of the line implant.
Well, Nobel. That was the first one. I mean, that was the one by
Brandmark.
Brandmark. You know, his son is a surgeon in San Fran.
No kidding.
Yeah, Ryan, we were supposed to get him on the show.
Who's that?
Dr. Brandmark's son in San Francisco. You know who introduced us to him? Anne Marie Gorsica. Big shout out to Anne Marie. My God, she's she's my favorite orthodontist in the world, and it's not just because she's so sweet and lives in what city does she live in? Antioch, California.
Oh, wow.
But God, she's the most connected woman in dentistry. She knows everyone. But anyway, yeah, Dr. Brandmark's son is an orthopedic surgeon.
No kidding.
And actually, I think, was Brandmark an orthopedic surgeon?
He was first.
Yeah, and so his son followed his dad. Mm-hmm. And basically, when they were doing the implants, you couldn't practice artificial hips on a mouse or a rat. Mm-hmm. So they thought, what would be really easy is just make little rods and just put it in the rat's jaw. And then when they went to pull them out, that was when they discovered
it osseointegrates.
It osseointegrates.
Yeah.
But that is the most research driven. I mean, they were the first. They're the oldest, and Nobel's because they're in Switzerland.
Switzerland,
the Nobel Peace Prize. That's where Nobel came from. Did you know that?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, they're in Switzerland. The Nobel Peace Prize, and Nobel is the scientist,
Uh-huh.
And so it's now Nobel Biocare. But they do have the most research, and I have noticed that the people who start getting into all-on-4s and the oral surgeons and periodontists that are doing a lot of big cases, another thing they don't want to get in a court case and say, well, where's the research for that? Mm-hmm. And then you saved $100 on the implant buying it from Russia or some company you're saying, well, titanium is titanium is titanium. Yeah, until you live in a country of America that has 1 million attorneys. This country has more attorneys than MDs.
Wow.
So the guys on the leading edge, they want some cover. And I'll tell you what, you could probably place the lowest cost titanium implant in probably at least 100 countries, and it wouldn't be a problem. But that's not how we roll.
Not so much here. No, it is. It's a big problem.
Yeah, it's
and
a huge problem.
Nobel stays on top of it with all their. I mean, they have so much R&D going on. They're on the cutting edge of technology. They stay so sharp. So that's probably a big reason why.
So that's Switzerland or Sweden?
Switzerland.
I always get those two S's mixed up. Switzerland.
Well, their U.S. headquarters is it's in Yorba Linda.
In Yorba Linda?
California, Orange County.
Orange County, Yorba Linda?
Right outside Anaheim.
So can I tell you my Switzerland stupidity? Mm-hmm. First time they ever invited me. It's so embarrassing. This dentist, there's like 4 dentists picked me up at the international airport, and they're driving me, and there's just, it was in Geneva. Mm-hmm. And Geneva, Switzerland. Pretty sure it was Geneva. And I'm sitting there, and it's just this gorgeous, huge mountain that looked like a picture.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there looking at that thing, and I mean, it's like if you'd see it on TV, you'd say it was a painting, it was all, it was just like, it was the most gorgeous thing in the world, and I just flew out of my mouth and said, it almost looks like the Matterhorn at Disneyland. And they go, that is the Matterhorn. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even know the Matterhorn. I just thought it was some magical kingdom mountain. I didn't know it was actually a real
American,
mountain.
right?
Yeah. And they just couldn't believe that I didn't know the Matterhorn at Disneyland was the Matterhorn in Switzerland.
Yep, that's what it's based off
of. One of the most beautiful countries. So how long? How long has Steve been placing implants?
Oh, I mean, at least a decade, probably longer. I don't want to misquote, but I mean, a good part of his practice now, he still practices. In addition to running this company and speaking all over the world, he still runs a practice, and he does a fair amount of implants in his practice still.
Well, but it's a real, money's the answer. What's the question? My endodontist friends are just like my prosthodontist friends. Like right now, you can't. There's no training programs to be a prosthodontist that doesn't include the surgical component. Hell, it's a requirement. So for the school to be accredited as a prosthodontist, you have to have surgery.
They have to.
But the endodontist and the prosthodontist, they so many of them can't do it because it's a channel conflict.
Yeah.
So if all these oral surgeons and periodontists are sending me these molar root canals,
right,
and I start placing implants, they're going to find another endodontist.
Right.
Same thing. The prosthodontist. All my prosthodontist friends said. Say I get all these big cases, and they're all from oral surgeons and periodontists, and if I place one implant, my phone would stop ringing.
Right.
So it's really tough for them. They have to get the training. Then a lot of these guys, they said they come out of school and they go, God, I graduated from pros school 3 years ago. I hadn't placed an implant in 3 years.
They're afraid because of the team approach system. And listen, that's totally regional. Some cities, regional.
Okay.
Some cities in this country, it's very team approach. So if you are a GP and you place an implant, or if you're a prost and you go outside your lines, the community kind of they ostracize you.
Turf.
But then you've got places like, most of Los Angeles, most of New York is basically a free-for-all. It's like everybody can do anything, and that's totally accepted.
Really?
So,
in LA and New York?
Certainly in the big cities, I think.
So if you're an endodontist in LA or a prosthodontist?
I came across many endodontists and prosthodontists. I would say the far majority in that city that place implants.
Now I'm a referring dentist. So I sit on the other side of that. And on my side, I have the exact opposite. It's like, I don't want to send, you're married, you got 3 kids, you got $400,000 in student loans, and your only tool is a hammer. Everything looks like a nail. And so you're going to retreat this thing, and maybe you even think it's cracked or it's never going to work. And so I always sit there and say, well, will you warranty it 5 years? I mean, so if the average woman right now is in America is living into it's like 79 in 8 months. We'll round her off to 80. So if you're 80 years old and your dentistry only lasted 5 years each time, you'd have to have everything redone 16 times in your life, which the average American, because at 5 years, the average American who's lived before us bought 12 new cars in their lifetime. Because those cars only lasted 5 years. If those damn cars lasted 10 years, they could get by with 6 cars.
Right.
And that's why my last car, I had a bunch of American Suburbans and all this stuff, and I mean, they should have came with a full-time mechanic. My last car was a 2004 Lexus Suburban. It's 2018, 14 years later, that car hasn't farted. It's still perfect. So if I live to be 80 and my average car lasted 14 years, I'm down to only needing 5 cars.
Right.
And so the endodontists, they won't warranty it 5 years.
Right. They don't want to.
And so they're, I did the best I could. That's bullshit.
Right.
You're an undergrad degree, you're a doctor of dentistry, and you had 3 years post-training in endos, and you're saying you did the best you could. Dude, she gave you $1,500, and a year later it's in the trash can.
Yeah.
So I always think, well, if I send it to an endodontist where he can feed his family by doing the retreat or extracting the tooth and doing an implant, I feel much better representing a patient if I can send her to you and you can say, you know what, because the bottom line, the only thing, your first name is Christian and your last name is Pusateri, so you got to be an Italian Catholic. If you study every major religion like my oldest sisters that are nuns have, the only thing in common in every major religion. There's no name, city, place. There's nothing. You know, the only thing that you can find verbatim, like plagiarism, in Hinduism, Buddhism, Confucius, Christianity, Islam, the 6 biggest religions. You know what it is?
What is it?
The Golden Rule.
Oh.
Treat other people. In fact, the first
treated.
place it shows up is actually Judaism. Mm-hmm. And it says, treat other people like you want to be treated. Mm-hmm. That is the entire law. All the rest is commentary.
Right.
I mean, you read that, and so when I go to a doctor, I just want the doctor to represent me like he would treat himself.
Right.
But if the only way he can pay his overhead is, well, all I can do is a retreat, probably not the best idea, but I don't want to send you to the oral surgeon to have him pull and place an implant because I only got 4 patients today, and you know I got to do $4,000 to break even.
Right.
I'm afraid of that.
Yeah.
So I would prefer an endodontist that I can feed your family either way. I can do the retreat, I can pull it and place an implant. But you know, if it was my tooth, treat other people like you want to be treated, I want to pull the tooth and do an implant.
And do an implant, exactly.
And if the endodontist isn't going to get into that for whatever reason, then I want a 5-year warranty.
Yeah.
But asking a specialist for a
5-year
warranty. I mean, shit, place an implant in 5 years. 20% of them have peri-implantitis. So it's really bad. But incentives matter.
Yeah.
And if incentives didn't matter, then you need to tell everybody who got a Nobel Prize in economics that they're just a bunch of voodoo tooth fairy queens riding unicorns, because it's a hardcore science.
Yeah, it is.
And I think as incredibly scientific as a root canal is, or a coronary artery bypass surgery where you're taking leg veins and grafting into the coronary, I think that's a hell of a lot easier to figure out than how the human mind works.
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Why do you purchase this and why do you not purchase that? And so the economists are kind of where the human being meets math. Mm-hmm. And that's a crazy intersection. You know?
Yeah, it is.
So he's placed in Noble Biocare. That's amazing. And is he? He doesn't have to practice surgery, so I don't think he's printing these out for him. But what are you thinking? The first 50 implants, is that your target market?
No, all. And to address what you were just saying, I mean, in terms of the team approach, you have with endodontists that haven't placed implants before, they're going to come in still far more prepared to cut than a GP because a GP hasn't cut. I mean, an endodontist knows how to get into anatomy. They know how to cut. All those things. So they're not starting in the same place. So
because they're doing all the apicoectomies, you mean?
Yeah, well, just the general, root canals, getting into the tissue and accesses and all that stuff is they're starting a little bit ahead of a GP who's never placed before. So even though from the implantology side, they're both beginners if they've never placed an implant, endodontists are a little bit ahead. And that's what we're doing with these models is we're allowing, because we can control the anatomy, we can give both doctors a controlled experience. And they're both starting at exactly the same place. Or if they want to start on a different procedure and they want to do, I mean, pretty much layup cases in implantology are the posterior sites. If it's already a dentulous or an immediate extraction, it's outside the aesthetic zone with a nice fat ridge. Those are the 30% of cases that GPs can get comfortable doing in their first few years of practicing. But if an endodontist or if somebody feels like they want to, they've done a few of these and they want to start, I really want to do the meat and bones of my coursework to be on a harder site, we can go into the aesthetic zone and you can still pick a nice fat ridge. We can print a nice thick ridge, but now you're in number 7. So you got to watch out that you don't break the buccal plate. It's a thinner ridge. You've got to make sure that you've got great, good distal space, and they can do 20 of those the same way and really get that down. It's just like being a pilot. You don't learn to be a pilot one day and the next day you're flying a spaceship or you're entering into an astronaut program. You do this, you learn how to fly by day, you do that for 30, 40 hours, then you learn night flying, then you learn storm flying. You learn one by doing the same exact kind for hours and hours and hours, and then you iterate. And that's what we can do with this. We can print the same model, you can practice the same procedure over and over again. So it works for the team approach. I think it also works if you're, even if you're a surgeon and you've got plenty of experience. We can print this with a mandibular canal, which we just did actually. I came into town, I've been in LA for a week, because what we did was decided to print a mandibular canal that was a little bit tricky, that came up a little bit high, right here in the chin, so that it was something that if you took a CT, you'd see that, and it might scare some doctors into doing the procedure. I wanted to do that on purpose, so that for an oral surgery course or someone that wanted to come in and try something that was a little not quite as beginner, they could take a stab at that. And we can do that, and then we can print 36 of them, and you can practice over and over and over again in the same site. So far that you can't do that anywhere. You know, the only place you can do that is with injection mold models, like I said, and they're models. They're not real replicas. So that's the part that gets me jazzed about this.
That example about, you know, you fly in the day, then you get really good, then you start night flying. It reminded me, that's how John F. Kennedy Jr., his wife Carolyn Bessette Jr., and his sister Lauren Bessette all died. I mean, it was basically his first night flight.
Night flying.
And he died from that. And the reason I tell you that, who's the, oh my God, who's the father-daughter consultant?
Bill Blatchford.
Bill Blatchford. I mean, that's another intense dude. One of the smartest guys I know.
Yeah. Pilot.
And his daughter Christina. Yeah. He was lecturing. He's in Oregon, and he was lecturing, I think, in Seattle.
Yeah.
And something happened to his plane, so he saw a black field. So he saw, I'm just going to go land it there. The last thing he realized, it's a lake. And the next thing he knows, he was waking up. And he woke up and it's like, what's going on? And the water was just coming up to his chin. He said if he would stay to sleep like not even 30, 40 more seconds, he would have drowned. And the reason I'm telling you those stories is I got to tell you, because guess which occupation has the highest small aircraft fatality? Doctors. And so when I got here in '87, you can't even make this story up. It's so flippin' crazy. So these two oral surgeons went halves on an airplane. And one of the oral surgeons had the day off, so he tells his wife, let's go fly up to Sedona and have lunch. They said, okay. So they drive to Sky Harbor, they get in their plane, they taxi out, they take off. And it's you just land there. It's between he takes off and nosedives straight in the ground, and they're all dead. Because his other partner had come and looked at the plane and decided it needs some scheduled maintenance. So he called this guy who took off the tail and went and it was getting repaired. And at the crime scene, they're like, they kept the road closed like all day because everybody at the FAA kept saying, well,
where's the tail?
Where's the freaking tail?
How did he not see that the tail was gone before he went to fly it?
Because he jumps in that car like I jump in my Lexus. You just jump in and turn the key. You don't walk around your car and do an inspection and air tires. And, you know, pilots all work from charts, because if pilots had a 99.9999% success rate, that means 4 aircraft would crash in America every single day. So they have an exhaustive checklist, and they have to work by list.
Oh, wow.
But doctors don't do that because they got a nice plane, and they just jump in there.
It's a great stat for a dinner party.
Yeah. So if you're a doctor, just call Uber. You don't need your own damn plane.
Well, Uber's got choppers now, I think. So
and so when oral surgeons are going down, I always thought that the number one problem with implants is that we're pulling a 3-rooted molar.
Yeah.
And then we have to make the hole fit our man-made monkey implant. We're drilling a cylinder down the middle. How long do you think it'll be before I take a cone beam technology of this molar I'm going to extract, send the file somewhere, and they mill out a titanium implant or a ceramic implant that's the exact same shape of the molar? So I pull out the molar, and then you got this Stratus 500. When do you think it'll have?
Well, there's still.
When do you think it'll be?
It's still milling when it comes to titanium. They're not.
Well, no, I'm talking about like maybe some ceramic, maybe zirconium. You know, some other something.
And it'd be custom fit for the patient, and it would be done in the practice.
So there'd be
we gotta be 7 years off. I gotta say from that still.
7 years?
Yeah. Yeah, I think from the early, before Dr. B or someone like him would get into that, it's probably.
Well, it would all come down to is you're either gonna have to take a titanium block and mill it down,
right?
Which that'd be crazy on a 3-rooted teeth, or you're gonna have to print something up.
Yeah.
And that would be. I would think that would be the gold standard.
I think it would too, and it's gonna get tricky because that's hard. You wouldn't want to print that as a one piece. You know, you want to print that in 2 pieces. Right now, the ceramic implants tend to be 1 pieces. So we're still way off from that. I mean, in some cases, the abutment you'll be able to do in office. PEEK is a polymer. So if you're putting a PEEK abutment on your implant, you could pretty soon be able to 3D print that in the office. So.
And another thing I want to tell you is when he was talking about cases, he was saying, start with posterior cases. A third of the cases are easy. Those are first molars. Those are maxillary, second bicuspids. But one of the smartest oral surgeons I know in Phoenix said something so profound to me probably 20, 30 years ago. He said, you know what? Every oral surgeon I know, 99% of all their headache, stress, and bullshit is the 1% of their business that's orthodontic surgery. So the first thing he did after he did like 10 orthodontic surgeries, he said, this is crazy. The insurance fees have come down. It's not even worth it. He just gave that up. And the thing about implants, man, is, you get a short, fat, bald guy like me or some old man with a liver spot, do any implant anywhere, you're going to be fine. But you get one woman with an anterior teeth, and when she smiles, it's curtains up and she shows her upper liver, and you place an implant there, my good God, she's going to nitpick that to death. So just do the easy stuff. Steal the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Don't get some damn fire truck ladder and climb all the way to the top and have some hot woman with knocked out her front tooth in a softball game. It's always a co-ed softball game. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Girls should not play with boys in co-ed softball teams. In 30 years, it's always she was pitching to some man, some 6'2" huge man who knocked that softball right in her face.
Oh boy.
And clipped out. I've seen him come in in my 30 years with 2, 3, 4 teeth in their hand.
Oh man.
But anyway, that's a case where it's just way too much trouble. If they're in the aesthetic zone and that lady's pretty good. Same thing with irrational cosmetic stuff. It seems like women, especially after they get a divorce. So they're going to be 40 years old. They get their first divorce. That's when the big surges in cosmetic surgery for every cosmetic surgery you can think of, and they're coming into you, and they in their walnut brain they want to look just like they did when they graduated from college, and the irrational expectations are so high. So learn how to pick your cases in the profit zone, and this is what you have to understand in implant cases. If every 5th implant case you did had to be redone, you're doing implants for free, because the profit from the first 4 is what it will take to fix the fifth one for free. So the best way to double your profit in implantology is case selection. And if you got a periodontist or an oral surgeon that's placed 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, there's oral surgeons in California that have placed 30,000 implants. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
Working with some of the best courses in the implant companies teaching GPs, the best implant courses always teach case selection is the most important thing. And when you're placing implants, take your low-hanging fruit, like you said, take the 30 to 40%, the 3 to 4 out of 10 that you can do competently. Because there's no point, those other 6, you're providing a great service to your patient if you take those 4, and you're making money while you're doing it, and you're not taking on the risk of the other 6 that really should be sent to the periodontist or the oral surgeon.
And it's so funny because over the years, like say you're doing a molar root canal on some 50, 60, 70-year-old man. And you're in there and it's a mess and something goes wrong, or you perf the furca, or whatever. And finally you just sit there and realize that this just needs to be extracted.
Yeah.
That's happened to me a couple of times in the last 30 years, and every time the old man will say, you know what, I told you to pull it. You're the one telling me to do the damn root canal.
Right.
Hell yeah, pull it. That's what I wanted to do in the first place. And so case selection, psychological profile, and by the time you're 55, you can see crazy in the eye.
And realize,
you can just
realize,
see crazy.
Even if the implant is strong and osseointegrates and there's no resorption, there's no necrosis, and you did a good job, you're still going to have to change that abutment and the attachment probably within 12, 15 years. Those things are not going to last the lifetime of a patient. So if a patient gets an implant at 40, you're going to be fixing that probably a few times as long as they stay in your area code. So something else to consider as well. So
are you guys on Twitter?
Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Dental Engineering Labs on all of them.
Okay, on Instagram, which
Dental Engineering Labs.
Dental Engineering Labs.
Same on Facebook.
I follow you on Instagram. You don't follow me. What up with that, homie?
I don't follow you back on Instagram?
On
let's do that right now.
Dental Engineering Lab.
Oh, well, that's I think I follow you personally, but they don't.
I was just teasing anyway. But again, just a little social media deal. The reason I love probably the best business school teacher out today is Scott Galloway, professor at NYU School of Stern Business. I mean, the guy, he is so data-driven. He's got a consulting company called L2. But Instagram is massively pulling away as the fastest. When we did the lecture with Ryan McCall of McCall Dentures, I mean, he's getting 400 to 500 new patients a month just from his Instagram page. And the reason Instagram's pulling away and Facebook is not is because if you build up 100 followers on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and you make a post, all your followers instantly get it. But on Facebook, if you have, like I have 300,000 followers on Facebook, and if I make a post and I boost it for $1,000, it will go to like 190,000.
Right now, you get a lot. It's a land grab on Instagram. You get a lot more traction.
And the only reason, because Mark Zuckerberg owns Instagram, so you got to say to yourself, well, why is he doing it free? Why is he doing that? He's doing that because he's trying to drive Snapchat to zero, and the party will be over the day Snapchat dies. And then Instagram will be pay to play. So right now, and the most
right now, $5 on Instagram over 2 days will get you like 1,500, 2,000 views, and it'll get you. I mean, we're offering specials on our Instagram page that we don't offer anywhere else, like direct, just buy one get one. So
yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And then the other thing that I don't understand what dentists do is they don't do LinkedIn. Well, LinkedIn. Everyone on LinkedIn has a job and dental insurance. You know how many of your friends on Facebook and Instagram are unemployed, looking for work? I mean, look at the average person's profile on LinkedIn. I mean, it's the cream of the crop. And I would say to Dennis, well, what do you do for social media? Oh, I do Facebook. Okay, so pay to play. I don't care if it's with social media or women. If you're paying for it, that's kind of there's a lot of drawbacks to that.
Right.
And Facebook is all pay to play. Don't do pay to play. Do the free stuff where if you build up the followers, you get the organic followers, you put Instagram on your website and your business cards and all that stuff. Instagram, Twitter is I like Twitter. But almost every single person I know can't even count any patients they got from Twitter. I mean, I don't know anybody. We've done 1,000 podcasts. No one has come onto this show and said, I get 10 new patients a month from Twitter. But I hear it all day long from Instagram. And then a lot of people think Facebook is good because first impressions are set and led. I can tell you that Facebook was launched in 2006. 2008, it was a gold mine.
Already.
It was all organic. It was all cool. It was all,
Right.
But that was 2000. It started in 2006. 2008, it was gold like Instagram is today. But, dude, it's 2018.
Yeah.
That was 2006 was a long time ago. That was, what is that?
12 years ago.
12 years ago. That 12 years is a long time. I mean, MySpace and Friendster.
We're still around.
But anyway, check
us out on Instagram.
Check them out on Instagram.
I just friended you again. You have 2 accounts, by the way, on Instagram. You got to clean that up.
2 accounts?
I think you have a bum account that you created on accident.
Really?
Yeah.
Find it. Can you find it?
Yeah, it's right here. See, you got this one, which is 14.5. That's yours. But then the one above it, that one.
Wow.
163. See, it says the bio says you, but that's definitely
so.
You're not using that one.
Can you screenshot that? Oh, so what I do?
Here, I'll do it.
Screenshot
I'll send it to you.
And email it to me. Howard@dentaltown.com.
Okay.
Thanks for finding that. We have our director of continuing education. I'm Howard Farran. It's Howard Goldstein. So I'm Howard@dentaltown.com. He's Hogo@dentaltown.com. If you want to make us an online C-course. And he's kicked people off Dentaltown before and banned them, and then they've made artificial accounts on Twitter with his name, and Hogo does.
So maybe that could be what's happening too.
So he gets parody accounts. But that's kind of funny. So again, one last, I know I always ask a question, but just say it again. So to contact you is dentalengineeringlab.com.
Correct. Or Christian Pusateri Dell.
Or what?
Christian Pusateri Dell. Email to?
You mean a website? www.
That's my Instagram and my Facebook.
Okay. So go to, am I following you on Instagram?
How do I go to Instagram? This is the big one.
Yeah.
Oh, you got the home button. You still got the home button on here.
Phone and readers on, and I can still. By the way, and another thing to the millennials. So many of you are so sweet. You're so adoring. I always say, always send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com, because I'm 55. My computer screen is really big. But you're always messaging me on Facebook, direct messaging on Twitter, and dude, that's on my iPhone. That's really hard to see. So what I want you to do this week in your homework assignment is to call your grandpa and ask him how good he can read on his on his smartphone. And email is just so much better when you're dealing with elderly people. So that's your.
So you already follow Dental Engineering Labs, and now you follow me as well. We have two separate pages, but we both talk to each other. We send things to each other.
But the other thing is the Dental Engineering Lab website. What is Steve Buchanan's website?
That is just dentalengineeringlabs.com.
So that's now his main.
Yeah.
That's so it's his main website deal.
Yeah.
And so what if they want to do this? What would be the next move?
If you want to, basically, you can reach out to us on any one of those mediums. To go to the website, call, email. We're pretty. Parker Poor and I both are running sales and marketing. He was going to come today, but couldn't.
Parker
make it.
who?
Parker Poor.
Parker. How do you spell poor?
Poor.
Is he poor?
He is. He is not.
He is not.
Nah.
He's a rich poor man. He's a rich man. Parker Poor man.
He is. Yep.
So what's he do? He's
business development for international. So he's the guy going to the trade shows all over the world. He works in tandem with me on all the sales and marketing objectives. And
you guys all live in Santa Barbara?
He lives in Santa Barbara. I live in New York.
Oh, you live in New York?
I do. Yep.
So I
just moved to Brooklyn actually 2 months ago.
So where were you born and raised?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Where?
St. Louis, Missouri.
Wow. Yeah. I went to dental school in Kansas City, Missouri.
Yep.
Yeah, I've been to St. Louis so many times.
Yeah.
So born in St. Louis.
So and you started your career right when I was. So we were probably there at the same time when I was like 1.
Yeah, when you were 1. Who was the best shortstop in the whole world that played for the St. Louis Cardinals?
You're not talking about a baseball guy.
Ozzie. What was his name?
Best shortstop ever.
Baseball player, St. Louis Cardinals, Ozzie.
That would have to be Ozzie Smith.
Ozzie Smith, St. Louis Cardinals. What year they put him at?
San Diego. Hold on a second.
No. Ozzie, St. Louis Cardinals, baseball. Just put Ozzie, St. Louis Cardinals, baseball.
Yeah, St. Louis Cardinals, Ozzie Smith, baseball shortstop.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you know what's so adorable about him? Because Kansas didn't have a baseball team. Wichita, Kansas.
Yeah.
So
that's where you're from?
It was the
Wichita?
born and raised Wichita, Kansas. So it was either the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I always liked the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
And but anyway,
they've got a great following.
He would always during the game. He'd always walk out there when he got to his position on game day. On the first, he did a lot of games, but it was always the first game. He always did it.
Mm-hmm.
But when he got to his shortstop, he'd do a standing backflip.
Yeah.
And planted on his feet. But when he had his little boy,
that's such a cool thing to do.
His little boy would go out with him, and his little boy was just this little bitty baby boy, and he'd do it just perfectly.
The same thing.
Yeah.
No
so they'd walk out there holding hands and in unison do a backflip.
Oh, that's
and I
cool.
just thought, yeah. And that's why my boys.
I was going to say, you and Ryan could probably pull that off.
Well, I have 4 boys, and we did kind of the same thing. We'd all go to McDonald's and eat a Big Mac together. And we'd all eat
in unison.
A Big Mac, and then we'd go to Krispy Kreme and we'd all eat a donut in unison.
Yeah.
But, I can't think. Is there anything I wasn't smart enough to ask you? Anything else you wanted to cover?
No, this was a blast. That was everything I want to talk about. It's great talking to somebody who's a big fan of implants and sees the coolness of this technology and the impact it can have.
So when did you move to New York City?
2 months ago.
From St. Louis?
St. Louis I was born. I was only there for a year. My dad was also a salesman, so we lived all over. But I was in Maryland for most of my childhood. Then was in LA for 6 years.
Where in Maryland? Suburb
Annapolis.
of D.C.?
Annapolis.
Where Air Force Academy is.
Naval Academy.
Naval Academy.
Yes, sir. Yep.
And then you just went to New York? And what
went to Los Angeles. That was with Camlog.
Yeah.
And was there for 6 years.
And so what made you go to New York?
I got engaged recently.
Yeah.
And my fiance's family is from New York. Most of my family is still around the D.C. area. So we wanted to be closer to family to have some kids.
So do you consider us friends?
Now, yeah, definitely.
So what if I said to you, you still want to be my friend?
Yes.
Sign this contract, and if you ever decide not to be friends again, I get your house.
Okay.
So your fiance?
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm so happy for you. But why would you bring a lawyer to bed with you and your fiance? You know, I mean, can you imagine your mom and dad saying, "By the way,
you're talking about marriage? Why get married?
Oh my God,
interesting.
What a racket!
Okay.
What a racket! Half of them fail.
Okay.
And
more than half,
and
right?
You're gonna buy someone a house. So if you really love her and she really loves you, then live happily ever after.
Yeah.
But if someone ever says, "Hey, we need to get a lawyer involved, and you need to sign right here," sign it and then buy her a house. You know, so just saying, dude. Just saying. Well, it's batshit crazy. The only time I recommend signing the contract and getting married is if you bring that little Aussie Junior in, because that's a long-term deal. That's a 20-year project.
Right.
I mean, my boys are 23 today. Tomorrow's Zach's birthday.
24.
So my boys are 22, 24, 26, 28. I mean, that's a long-term project.
Did you plan that?
Yeah, we had 4 boys in 60 months. So if you're gonna, if someone says, you know, we need to sign a contract.
Your mom was pregnant for 5 years straight, 4 years straight.
I guess so, right? She must have liked being pregnant.
That is crazy.
Well, we both
6 years straight.
We both came from big families. We were both raised Catholic in Kansas. We both came from families of 7. Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you come from a big Catholic family of 7, my family of 4 seems like a really small family.
Compared to 7.
And then I notice if you come from a family of 2, a lot of them have none or dogs or 1. But again, just
we do. I was one of 2.
Yeah.
1 brother.
So I recommend that you don't get married and unless you make a baby. Okay. If you make a baby, then if someone says we need to sign a contract, it's like, why?
Howard, we're making a baby.
Okay.
We got one in the oven.
Oh, you got one in the oven. Oh, well, congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations, man. Okay, so
now is this okay? Is this okay now? Now we're doing this?
Now you got to sign
away.
Sign away. Because it's a really long-term project.
It is. It's at least 18 years.
And it's at least I would say it's a 25-year project.
Yeah, sure. Well, you never really stop being a parent, right? I mean, you're not cut off next year. He's still got to be around.
Well, I decided not.
I'm here right now. I'm all get better.
I decided not to be a parent, and then my 4 boys got real mad at me.
Right.
So I had to.
I had to come back around.
I had to come back around.
Reevaluate.
But what was my final word of advice to you is NYU. 7.5% of all the dentists in America came from NYU. I think their graduating class is like 350. But I would immediately start going into NYU. It's the biggest dental force in America. I mean, you can't go to any city in any state anywhere and not find an NYU grad.
Do you have a friend there?
I have lots of them.
Do you have one that would talk to me? I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Shoot me an email, say who's your NYU homies, and I'll reply and give you some contacts because and the other thing about NYU. You said your other business partner is international.
Correct.
NYU, it's the biggest foreign grad program. Anyway, long story short, here's another big deal with NYU. They got a foreign program where dentists from other countries come, and so instead of the whole 4 years, I think it's like a year and a half, or something like that. Because if say you're from anywhere in Central and South America, Africa, and Asia, and you've been practicing dentistry for 10 years, so you come to America. And you get an American degree, and then you go back to San Paulo.
Right.
Now you're downtown in the high rise, and you're the
American educated,
trained in America. Yep. So now you're just going to treat because what people don't realize between the first world and the third world is in the first world country, the richest is like 1%. Because the middle class is the majority, and then the poverty, below the poverty line is about 14%.
Yeah.
Well, in the third world, there's almost no middle class. So instead of the rich 1%, is rich 5% minimum.
Yeah.
And it could be maybe 6 or 7%.
Yeah.
So when you go to poor countries, the Beverly Hills market is 5 times bigger, but they always go to to the American trained doctors. So America is number one in healthcare, medicine, military, insurance, banking, finance, music, movies.
Number one as far as just
around the world.
Yeah.
I mean, so like number one in cars is Germany and Japan.
Right.
Nobody anywhere in the world
right.
sends their say the other 200 countries besides the first world.
Yeah.
When they send their students abroad to learn engineering,
yeah.
they send them to Germany and Japan.
Right.
And then no government's going to say, "Oh yeah, go to America because we want to make Buicks here."
Yeah.
You know, so America is not number, but it is number one in military,
right.
medicine, insurance, banking, finance, music, and movies. And you go anywhere around the world, America dominates those deals. In fact, in all throughout Africa, Asia, and South America, I've heard so many people say that in my country, when you get sick, you don't want a doctor, you want a pilot, and you want to fly to America.
Right.
So when those dentists go to NYU and they spend 2 years there, and then maybe they were in a middle class where did a lot of extractions, removables, flippers, and then they go back. Now they have an Stephen Buchanan office right downtown, charging 2 to 3 times in U.S. dollars for a crown what we would charge.
Oh my God.
So it has so many international connections.
Yeah.
So there's
I'm gonna email you on that.
There's an NY. There's a gazillion NYU grads in every country on earth.
Right.
And I've met them because I've lectured in 50 countries.
Yeah.
And so many of them will come out to you. And the ones that know perfect English,
yeah.
I would say, where did you learn English that good? Oh, I went to NYU.
NYU, that's why.
Well,
when you come out to New York, we'll go there together.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I love New York, man. It was my first lecture, April 4th, 1990, Sheridan, Manhattan. And you want to know
how... You just had your 18th anniversary of your first lecture.
You know how Kansas stupid I was?
Well, I doubt
my receptionist made me a reservation, and it was at the Sheridan. So I fly into LaGuardia or JFK, I forget which one. I think it was LaGuardia, and it was LaGuardia because JFK's in Jamaica. Flew into LaGuardia, get in the taxi. He goes, "Where are you going, buddy?" And I said, "The Sheridan." He goes, "Which one?" I said, "The Sheridan." He goes, "Dude, there's 100 Sheratons in Manhattan." I'm like, "What? What?" And I got in there late, so then I'm calling back home, and do you have an address on that Sheridan? And she said, "Well, it's the Sheridan in Manhattan." And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm 27, and you're a hillbilly, and evidently there's more than one Sheridan in Manhattan." But God,
that's a great coming to New York story.
But tell Stephen. Thanks so much.
I absolutely will.
Best of luck.
Thanks for having me,
get on Dental Town and tell the story and get Stephen to get on Dental Town.
Okay.
Get Stephen. I mean, there's like 250,000 dentists on Dental Town.
Yeah, we know. We're aware.
And so get on there and if
write
you feel
write something.
Yeah. And if you feel like you don't want that it's too promotional, just say I just finished a podcast with Howard.
Okay.
And Steve did one earlier, and you can repost that podcast. And Howard wanted me to get on here and explain that. And by the way, it's Dental Town. It's not Dentist Town. I owned Dentist Town in the beginning, and a lot of dentists would just wanted dentists only. And the reason I said no and I held my ground, even though Ortho Town to this day doesn't, is that if you took away 500 companies, you're not a rockin' hot dentist. You want to see what dentistry looks like when you don't have 500 dental countries? You can come follow me to some third world countries where they're sitting outside on a rug and their equipment was all bought at Home Depot. It's the CBCTs.
Are you doing any missionary work?
Yeah.
Do you?
Am I do what?
Do you do mission trips at
all
for dentistry?
Yeah. Yep.
We have been interested in supporting that. I don't know if you want to talk about that after.
Well, we have a whole thread called Humanitarian Dentistry.
Really?
Where people are asking for help or volunteer.
On Dental Town?
Yeah, it's one of the 50 categories, humanitarian.
Okay,
and
so
we broke it into two because it's two distinct deals. There's charitable and missionary. And the missionary dentist, that's a whole different deal. They're doing it for Jesus and they're fixing teeth and converting. And then the other one's charitable.
Charitable.
So I'd say it's about half and half on Dental Town. Half go down there just for the charitable dentistry, income inequality, helping the underprivileged, and half are doing it for religious reasons. But yeah. All right, buddy.
Thanks
so much for coming by.
Thanks for having me. That was a blast.
It was fun. It was fun for me, and I learned a lot.